Welcome to Lifelist, a birding podcast.
Okay, welcome everybody. We are glad to be back with you here, recording again, Lifelist, a birding podcast. My name is George Armistead, and I am with Alvaro Jaramillo. How are you today, Al?
Yes, I am here. I popped in early there because,
oh man,
I should have let you do your full on introduction, but I knew you were going to go on too long about yourself. No.
Yes, I've been criticized before for being a little long winded. Yes, it's true.
Yeah, me too. Especially if gulls are involved or tertial edges. Mm-hmm. So I'll keep it. I'll keep that to other times, other places, because we're here to entertain. And educate.
Keep the gold stuff to yourself, man. Keep it really. Yeah. I mean, who wants to hear that business? Honestly,
I know. It's all tanager talk.
Yeah, exactly. Let's soup it up and do it right. So, tell me, what has been going on out your way, man? It's spring shaping up well, or are you seeing some stuff? You've been getting outside?
Yeah, a little bit. It's interesting. I think. It's going to be, I'll be like a run-on sentence on this because I'm always talking about how different migration is in the West and in the East. So we have this like really like long migration, so, it starts so early but you never have that kind of like, boom, it's here, it's happening, it's crazy. The only thing I kind of get that way is the loons. Like when the loons are migrating offshore, it can be just like so many, and it's just like, and they're going through. There's good number of loons. The kind of last week we usually see a lot of surf scoters, and there was a white-winged scoter in with the local flock, and then a couple of days later 2 black scoters. So that was kind of like 3 scoter species basically at the end of my street was really cool. And man, that the excitement for me was a Franklin's gull that flew over my house, that. I mean, that it's not a common bird. It's not incredibly rare either. They just are sort of some springs they go through here, right along the coast, like right along the coast. I mean, hugging the coast. So awesome. The fact that it flew in.
Yeah. And such an awesome migrant, right? Like, I mean, you see them on your trips down in Chile and in the wintering grounds down there, and then to know where they're headed up to the prairie potholes, you're pretty lucky to get one there, I imagine.
I know. So it was kind of it's an exciting thing. Like even, I posted about it, and a lot of the Chileans kind of were liking it because they know that bird, and, the Canadians are, the prairie folks are, it's kind of a connection bird, like Wimbrel. I think of it too, like I see Wimbrels here, and I think of all the places I see Wimbrels in, and how, sounds silly, but birds do connect us, not just places, but people. So it's cool. Yeah. So that's kind of my excitement, kind of a couple of ducks, the loons are going through, and long migration, Franklin's gull.
Franklin's gull.
I could go on. But when did you go on?
What was that? Was the Franklin you had? It was a nice pink one.
Yeah. It was.
Real rosy,
pinky, rosy.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Alvaro, but I believe that the Franklin's gull is one of 2 birds in North America undergoes complete molt twice a year. Isn't that an answer to a trivia question?
I think that could be an answer to a trivia question, but yes. But weirdly enough, I know the Franklin's gull is one, but I'm blanking out on what the other one is.
Oh, and from the guy who wrote the book, no less.
Oh, it's bobolink.
Exactly.
Yeah. There we go. That did it for me. I was like,
I locked it in.
It locked it in for me.
Yeah. No, I love that one. I love that. I love bird trivia like that, and that's one of my favorite questions on those long car rides on tour. These are useful questions to have. So, yeah, I mean, around here, it is kind of like it's a gray day today. Gray, not much wind, but we are getting closer and closer to Warbler mania when the warblers really hit. And like the first ones are just kind of showing up. A bunch of my friends in the last few days have seen hooded warblers, which really seem to hit south of us. I've seen people reporting them, as you might expect. More yellow-throated warblers have been seen sparingly the last few weeks. Louisiana water thrush, which I just think is such a cool bird, and
one of the earliest migrants.
Yes, exactly. It's like around here, usually it's like 25th of March or something. You could start to look for it and hope to have a reasonable chance to see it. Even when there can still be snow here and frosts. So, yeah, I mean, I actually have not connected with that this year here in the city of Philadelphia, or actually for the last couple of years. It's really been a bird I've been wanting to see. But did go to the Hines Refuge here this weekend, kind of targeting the marsh there, hoping to find rails. And went out there at dawn with a buddy of mine, Liam, and we just kind of like keeping our ears peeled, as the sun was rising. Finally heard a Virginia rail grunting away, doing it. It's sort of like, I like to think of it as like the Three Stooges call. They kind of go, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. That's Curly, I think it was.
Yeah, it was Curly, I think. Yeah, not Mo. Yeah,
not Mo.
But he did the whoop, 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 right. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think that was Curly too.
Oh, is that Curly also? I'm getting my Three Stooges.
I was like, Mo was a guy that always hitting everybody. It's like, he was kind of the leader, so he's always hitting them. Yeah. You probably can't watch the Three Stooges these days.
I was going to say, with a good conscience. Yeah, even though I believe
violence.
I think it was Larry is from the city of Philadelphia, born right downtown here, just a few blocks away, if I remember right. It's one of them. I think it was Larry. But yeah, so at any rate, we got not to get too far afield here, we did get our Virginia rail, and we heard it and sounded off, grunted a few times, but it sounded like it was further away than it was. You know how rails do that. They kind of they sound off and you're not exactly sure where they are. All of a sudden we realized this thing's on the mud, just like running around like a little chicken, and we're watching it, and I was like, oh, there's another one, and look over, and I was like, oh, maybe it's a pair here, that'd be awesome. But locally, regionally not uncommon at all, but locally right here in the city, we don't have a lot of rail habitat. And so I knew people would be kind of excited about it, but it turned out the other bird was not a Virginia rail at all, but was a Sora. And they were both just kind of feeding in the dark, early morning light on the mud there, running around, pecking at stuff in the mud. And they looked pretty happy. And we just watched them for a while. I managed to get some pretty good pictures of the Sora. So that was just real nice. And then we had actually, later in the day, had an orange-crowned warbler showing orange in the crown, which, I know you guys see that out west a bit. But here,
it's the breeding here.
Yeah. We don't see orange crowns a whole lot. It's kind of an uncommon, scarce migrant here. And to see one showing orange in the crown is even rarer. So that was real nice. Nice kind of first spring day.
Interesting thing about rails is, historically, before we messed around with islands, there were all of these rails on multiple islands, many of them flightless. And I was just reading a paper recently about, the relationships of all these rails, and all the flightless ones aren't necessarily related to each other, which maybe, somehow maybe you would expect that, all these, there was like some rail that went crazy, migrating everywhere, and, had a tendency to go flightless, but there's multiple lines that have gone flightless all over the world. And, it's kind of interesting, it's like they become mammals in a sense, like when they've landed on these little islands and the right habitat was there and there were no predators, they just become like mice. And
like
then
rodent,
like a rodent. Yeah. It's cool. It's also sad, to see how many we've lost, how many of these rails are gone,
Yeah. Can you imagine going, you got a Hawaii trip coming up? Imagine if you could still see Hawaiian rail out there, how cool that would be.
Yeah, I know. It'd be, but but as a tour leader, maybe it wouldn't be so cool because we'd be sitting there, spending 15 hours to try to see this one bird that, you have a 30% chance of seeing.
Yeah.
I'm not
Worse
trying
than
to
Mangrove
suggest,
Cuckoo.
yeah, I'm not trying to suggest that bird tour leaders dislike their job, but there are certain birds that we're very excited to see, but we never really are excited to look for them,
Oh, and there's certain splits you're not terribly happy about either. Some of these, our friends here in Philly, going to split all the Catharus thrushes a million different ways. And I'm like, thanks. That gives us a bunch more endemics to look for, but, separating them will be a real treat. But yeah, when I think of like tour leader birds that are like my least favorite to look for, mangrove cuckoo ranks high. I've done enough South Florida trips where you have to look for mangrove cuckoo, and even using audio lures isn't that helpful because they hear a lot of that and they don't really respond. So you really have to find them. And like LeConte's thrasher is another one.
Oh yeah,
be real tricky. Those two North American birds.
From a world perspective, though, the mangrove cuckoo on some of the lesser Antillean islands is like super abundant, and you just sort of see it walking around. So
at all elevation.
Not the cuckoo walking around, but
yeah. No, you see them. You see it all. I remember being shocked by that in Puerto Rico, seeing mangrove cuckoos up a couple 100 feet or higher, in elevation. In the highlands. Pretty strange. You'd mentioned we both have spent some time in the West Indies and in the Caribbean in general. Good place for mangrove cuckoos, of course. Good place for house wrens, which I know are one of your kind of pet projects you want to get into. And I saw you'd posted about St. Vincent, where things are starting to look a little grim.
Yeah. So, I mean, it'll all depend on when this airs, but this could be sort of a done deal, or it could be ongoing. There's a lot of the southern Lesser Antilles are volcanic, and have these explosive volcanoes, and that's what's happening on the island of St. Vincent, which is in the nation of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and it's happened before a few years ago, probably now 20 years ago on Montserrat, which is another island that's had wonderful town and beautiful habitat. That half of the island was destroyed by a volcano. By the way, it seems like every single volcano in the Lesser Antilles is called soufriere. So just so you know, I think both of these were soufriere.
Is that like from the root word to suffer, or is it just?
Might be, yeah. I mean, this is where I'm gonna feign. I'm gonna, my ignorance is gonna show, but I would assume so. And somebody's gonna write an angry letter saying, no, it doesn't. It's from the French for I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we're happy to be educated. Yeah, we certainly could use some of that.
But so the volcano on St. Vincent is having this violent ash eruption and pyroclastic flows and all this kind of thing, and it's an island known for some great birds. Specifically, I think top of the line bird that comes up is St. Vincent parrot, because it's wonderful looking and it's really rare and endemic to the island. But there are all sorts of other interesting birds there. The whistling warbler, which is this really cool looking warbler without close relatives, in fact.
Is that one that's got like two? Is it its own family, or is it one other bird in that family?
I think it's actually in the typical New World warblers still, but it's like an early lineage. Yeah, I think it's, but we'd have to look. Yeah, things change so fast, George. You can't keep up.
True. It's very true.
I was thinking about the fact that, so this is a beautiful island with wonderful people, amazing sort of general place to visit. We go there to see birds. We get connected to these places that the average person, has not been to or even heard of sometimes, and it as a birder or as a, world birder, you have so many connections to little spots. Even if you've never been there, why, what it might look like, or what birds might be there, or what the habitat might be like. We have this different emotional reaction sometimes to world events like a volcano, because it's just a lot of people, it's like, oh, some volcano's going off on some random island in the middle of the Caribbean. But for us, it's like, I know the house friends are cool out there. I know where to find it's one out of all of the Lesser Antillean islands, it has the most restricted population of Carib grackles of all things, and all these connections that started coming back to me. And, you just, it's kind of tough sometimes, hear all this news about places you have a fondness for. And it was kind of that's how I saw it. It's kind of crap news. And I know volcanoes are natural, and, that ash might actually fortify the forest long term. And there might be, even all sorts of positive changes. But in the meantime, you just don't know. And the uncertainty of what's happening is difficult. And but St. Vincent, power to it.
Is that's the one, the parrot there is the Cicero? Is that right?
Yeah, that's Dominica.
That's the Dominica one. Okay.
Yeah, this got the Cicero and the Imperial and the
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's been too long since I've been to the Greater Antilles, but never the Lesser Antilles. The warblers we were discussing, or that I was thinking of yellow-headed warbler and orient warbler, both of which are in the warbler family, as you said, Parulidae, but in the genus Teratistris.
Now, hold on a second. Those two are now a different family.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just looked it up online.
Yeah, they're Cuban.
But I thought that they were in their own family. Yeah.
Yeah.
But those were not the ones you were talking about.
Yeah, whistling warbler's got kind of these glasses, and what kind of looks like white glasses. It's got this funny white stripe on the neck, which is just unusual looking. It looks like it doesn't quite look right for a warbler.
Yeah, no, they look totally strange. I'd love to see those things someday. I've spent time in Jamaica and Puerto Rico and spent a couple days in Cuba, but I really didn't get to see much there, and I still have to go to the DR. I posted the other day about the Puerto Rican Sharp-shinned Hawk, which, you get these Facebook memories, and often they're like something stupid, but every now and then they give you like a real nugget, and that was a nice nugget. I'd actually totally lost this picture. I don't even, it was back, I think I posted in 2009 or 2010 or something. And just a beautiful little accipiter, really well marked. Tiny little thing, got like dark eyes. The legs look tiny on this thing. Like it looks like it eats crickets or something. I don't know what they feast on. And I knew when we were seeing them back then, it was, over a decade ago, before a lot of these storms had hit and wiped out a lot of the big trees, which they need, I gather. And I think at the time we thought there was about 250 or so left. And then I saw maybe 2-3 years ago, Peregrine Fund went in there to survey these things. And I think they maxed out at 19 birds. And nobody really knows how many are left. It could be fewer than that now. So this is this beautiful little tiny hawk. Surely it is a different species, than Sharp-shinned Hawk. I'm sure once our friends at the Academy of Natural Sciences of Drexel University here get done doing their sequencing and everything, it'll show that these are different species in all likelihood. And this thing may be just vanishing right in front of our eyes. Really, really sad.
Yeah, and there's these different populations in the Greater Antilles. So I've been to Cuba multiple times over the year. I mean, many times over the years, leading tours, and there is a resident Sharp-shinned Hawk there as well that I've never seen because it's so restricted to really the eastern, there's some mountains in the east, where it's found, and you sort of have to go look for it. And to me, it's a problem that our conservation focus is so much on the species that we assume, right? When we do that, we're assuming we have everything all worked out. So we're dealing with the right set of, entities, but it isn't worked out. And, naturalists can go in there and go, that thing's different. I don't care if you call it a species or a subspecies or whatever. That thing is important. And we haven't given them the importance that some of these populations need. And then when suddenly they become a species or split or whatever, everybody's like, oh my God, Bahama nuthatch. I mean, everybody who was paying attention knew that the Bahama nuthatch was something special forever.
Yeah, anybody who'd seen those birds or the yellow-throated warblers that were there, everybody knows those things are different.
Right. And unique to an island, especially. I mean, it's a problem that we have this narrow mind over conservation and what we're conserving. We should really always be talking about populations of importance and almost forget whether they're species or not.
And just, go with habitat, just big chunks of habitat as much as we can. Yeah, I mean, we got into this a little bit too, talking about that martin, the gray-breasted martin that Doug Gottschfeld found up there in Brooklyn, and how, those are such tricky birds. But as you and our friend Dan Lane and I think one or two others were talking about, those gray-breasted martins really are probably 3 different species, huh?
Yeah, it could be 3 different species and maybe not each other's closest relatives. So, when somebody says, hey, it looked like a gray-breasted martin, you have to say, well, which one? Because they're actually different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we even talked a little bit about how our purple martins here in North America seem very clearly 2 separate species as well.
If not 3, right? Because the Western, the Eastern, and then there's the cactus ones in the desert.
Southwest.
The deserts. Yeah. So, and they extend all the way down into, almost, I wouldn't say central Mexico, but certainly pretty far south into Mexico, which that's interesting. A lot of things that extend south as a breeder, often those southern populations are kind of the oldest lineage, and but somebody's going to have to sort it out, either voice or molecular stuff. There's some molecular stuff that's been done already, but
yeah. Well, it's interesting stuff. As you say, I think the more folks can get out of the mindset of simply thinking about the species that are presented to them in the field guide or on their lists, and think about each of these populations, distinct populations.
Let me pose something to you, George. Though, often people will ask me on over the years, oh, so do you keep a list, a life list, huh? And I say, well, over the years, it's become less important to me, the actual elements of that list, or how it's structured. I look at it on eBird. But when you understand that even the entities that we call species are not set in stone yet, they're fluid. So I could say to you, hey, look, I've seen, I don't know, 3 species of gray-breasted martin, and I can only count it as one officially. It starts making the whole life list a little different, which gets the whole point. Why did we call this thing the life list?
Yeah. We said we were going to get into this a little bit this time around, and I think it's a very good question. And I think it's good to consider. People often ask you, right, if you're a lister or not, right? Would you consider yourself a lister?
Well, at times, I guess, but not really. Not in the way that they usually mean it. Are you going and chasing things around and trying to add to your list? But I care deeply about my backyard list, my house list. I I don't always remember what the numbers are or anything, but I really relish the adding a new one to my yard list. I mean, having spent a lot of time in Chile, and really worked hard at trying to sort things out in the country, I really, really, if there's a brand new one for me to see in Chile when I'm out there, I'll make an effort to actually see it, more so than if it was an ABA bird.
Right.
But I've over the years, the list, I mean, when I was a teenager, I was a crazy lister because I didn't have any options to see anything different other than where I lived and was sort of a 4-hour driving radius with local birders. So if a scissortail flycatcher showed up somewhere, that was going to be my only chance. And at that point in time, I thought maybe in my whole life to see a scissortail flycatcher.
Yeah.
So it was a really big deal. And that, as travel has happened and so forth, I now understand what I long for is novelty. So that sharp-shinned hawk in Puerto Rico, that is huge. Seeing that, when I saw one of those, and it was so different from what I knew, and it was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Look at that thing. Yet I can't count it as a bird on a life list in a sense, because it's still just a sharp-shinned hawk. So there's the sort of disconnect for me. But, life list, I think what I think the name for the podcast, what I like about it is that listing is important to birders. Novelty is important to birders, but there's more to all of this than just the very simple nature of listing or sort of acquisition type birding, let's call it. And that's where the life part of it is, right? And even as your life changes, how you even interact with a list of birds changes. So I thought there was a heck of a lot of depth in a word that we all understand, but we kind of don't, because we all interpret it in a different way. So that's my take on the name. That's what I liked about it,
Yeah. No, I like it too. I think all birders, I think in some shape or form, I shouldn't say all, right? But certainly a majority of us, a list is a structure, or it helps structure your birding a little bit. It helps structure your understanding of what you're seeing. It helps break it down into something manageable. And yeah, I think the backyard list is often I like to think of it as the basic unit of listing. And I think as people progress as a birder, they often end up caring about county lists or state lists, life lists, not just life lists in the ABA area, but maybe the whole world. And for some people, each of those lists are important and things that keep them going, right? That keep a chase alive, things that they can go for. And I think we've seen it where that can be a really healthy and fun thing, and other times where it can be a less healthy thing at times. Sometimes people really just obsess about their lists to the point that they can't actually have a good time when they're out in the field. And I think, as I'm sure you've heard people say on trips, I like to enjoy the birds I see and not worry too much about the ones I don't see. Every now and then we all miss a bird we really, really want to see. That's just part of the game. But I think if you look at your list as a way to help you build a collection of experiences outdoors, enjoying yourself at peace, or even really, really excited, or, maybe facing the agony of defeat of a day in the rain, or, a long drive where you didn't see what you wanted to see, I think building a life list in that respect, in some ways it kind of parallels the journey of a birder.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what I like.
And,
about
you can also see it as, in a more philosophical way, a life list is an accumulation of experiences, right? So you can you're going to go to Colombia, and you're going to see a bunch of new birds, but you're also seeing Colombia. That might be your first time ever. You might also see your first, giant otter, as you did recently, and all of this other stuff that goes on. And each region of Colombia has got slightly different breakfast food,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
all
Different arepas. Different places have different arepas.
Yeah, different arepas, and then all of that adds to the life part of it and the accumulation. Like you're not actually making a list of every kind of little arepa you've eaten. Although I will say the one that's fried and has an egg in it is the best.
Ooh,
okay, that's the best arepa, and we, that was in the north. We had those up in the north in the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean. Mm.
So,
Nice.
the thing is that it's this. Yeah, you don't have to be ticking everything off, but you're going through life and you're paying attention. And you're paying attention to the stuff that's around you. And obviously for us, it's birds. And that is part of the list, So it's it doesn't have to be, it can be more a figurative list rather than, a real list.
Yeah. 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 I was kind of like you. I was real serious about my ABA area life list. And I don't even know what it is now. I know it's kind of roughly in the low or mid 700s, but I have a lot of stuff pre-eBird that didn't make it in there, and eBird is kind of functioning as my default listing software these days. But what I liked about listing was I kept a notebook,
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I got something new, I would write a paragraph about the new bird I saw. Who I was with, where I was, the date, other things we saw that day. And of course, I have no idea where these notebooks are now. Hopefully they're buried someplace in a closet. But for years, I loved going back and looking at those and just thinking about all the memories that they would evoke. And I think that's one of the great things that birding offers. And I feel the same way today about many of my eBird lists. I love going on there and looking back at some of the stuff seen even earlier in the year or 10 years ago. And so, yeah, I think, I think the philosophical way of looking at the life list is a good way to go. And as you say, you can end up with targets, birds you really want to see, not because you care necessarily about adding to your life list, but because they will get you someplace where you might see that bird, but you might see a whole bunch of other stuff too. You might meet some cool people, and you might eat some really good arepas.
Arepas, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, all about the arepas. That'd be a great, the best birding breakfast foods throughout the world. Some. Yeah. I got to admit, a lot of people really, really talk down about British food, but I found British breakfasts to be amazing. If you at a kind of pub little stay somewhere, a village kind of little inn, and there's that great toast and eggs, and I'm a meat eater, so there was some all sorts of different meats involved. So, man, not for everyone, but arepas, they're vegan, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Yeah. I don't know.
No, I love some eggs to start the day, man. I mean, a good breakfast, pretty tough to beat. And I love your idea. I had an idea for a restaurant / bar that I'm gonna just offer up for some, here for some restaurant.
I got to say, a lot of things with you, George. It's something / bar.
Possibly true. I will neither confirm nor deny that.
I have a great idea for a bookstore / bar. Anyway,
yeah, I like socializing. I'm a very social person.
So what's the idea?
So I wanted to call it Breakfast Bar. And the idea was that you would have a bar where, people like, I don't know where you are, but where I am, like people go to like Denny's at 2 a.m, to get like greasy breakfast foods after they've, been out having some beers. They're like, okay, let's go to Denny's or go to this diner, and we'll get some greasy breakfast food. And I was like, I love that concept. I've done it, a number of times myself. And I thought, well, what if you had a bar that was just called the breakfast bar? And basically, during the hours that they opened, they served all sort of the weird different breakfast foods you can get, like hominy, grits, scrapple, all, variations of pancakes, French toast.
You're assuming people in the rest of the world know what scrapple is. That's like a regional endemic to where you live, roughly. So.
It is. Everything but the squeal, baby. That's what they say. Everything but the squeal. Yeah. It's a sort of Pennsylvania Dutch pork product from, southeastern PA, northern Maryland, northern Delaware. And yeah, it's not for everybody. Scrapple is not for everybody, but, I like having it every now and then. It's not something you can eat a lot of, I don't find. I've never known anyone that was like my father, perhaps a notable exception, but most people, limit their scrapple intake. It is, as you say, it's a regional endemic, perhaps for a reason.
Yeah, no, I'm going to have to, I've got some restaurant ideas too. I don't want to blow all my ideas today, but we'll have to have a food. We're going to have a food show one day. Just talk about best,
or at least a focus group.
Best foods we've had while birding.
Absolutely,
or in between birding.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
man.
So life list. That's, I think. And one of the reasons we're talking about it and we're explaining it and so forth is that I think there is this interesting and sometimes confrontational nature over the idea of listing. People have this assumption of a person who is really driven by the list in a competitive sense of what they're going to be like, which is not always true. But there are some elements of truth in it sometimes. And this also idea that there has to be a pure birding kind of non-listing, more, observational. And I've never understood the fact that we have to separate it all. That's part of the beautiful part of birding is we can have it all within birding. Mm-hmm. And today you can be a lister, or in your backyard you can be a lister, and tomorrow you can be record birds or paint birds or just look at the feeder or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, and I think I'm the same way. I think we have similar approaches, and I like having days where I know that what I want to do is go to a given spot and census it, try to see as many birds in that area as I can. And I have other days where I don't want to list at all. I just want to walk, enjoy being outside, and sort of just enjoy whatever I happen to see. And then there's even times, where I go someplace and I am actively, constantly trying to see a particular bird, not even necessarily listing, but just looking for, targeting one thing. Mm-hmm. And, those are all really different experiences.
Yeah.
And I think, as you say, there's no reason to, it's supposed to be fun, right? It's supposed to be fun. People should get out of it what they want. And I do think, as you're sort of suggesting, it's important also not to necessarily judge folks for what they do enjoy about birding. I would say virtually every kind of birding has real merits.
I got to say that the one thing that for me personally has been kind of an eye-opener in the last few years is there have been situations where some good bird has been seen, and I often I want it's a bird I'm interested in because not of the list, but I want to get a photograph of it, or there's some identification issue that's involved that I think is interesting, and I go and specifically go to see it, and I haven't. So you dip, right? The classic dipped out on a known bird, and maybe it was never seen again, or maybe it was just that one day it wasn't there. But I've felt bad. I felt bad, and I felt like I've failed, and I felt like driving back, I'm like, why did I do that? Why didn't I just go birding? Because you can't fail at birding. You never fail.
Really.
You never feel bad when you're just looking for stuff. But when you're out for a very specific quest in a bird, it can bring like a negative feeling if it doesn't happen. And I decided I would minimize that in my life as a birder.
Yeah, I have as well.
The gains weren't high enough to compensate for that feeling of loss, or not loss, but
of missing out,
failure.
Perceived loss. Yeah, perceived loss. Yeah.
And I think for others, it's the adrenaline rush of the whole thing, the just hearing about something that they can drive to tomorrow, and the just looking forward to that and going crazy just thinking about it, and the potential is enough of a rush that whether they see it or don't see it, it all is good in the end. But for me, it's sort of like, I got to minimize this because I don't like the feeling. So you gotta know who you are, right? With birding,
exactly.
You gotta know what you want to take from it. That's really like your thing, And so I've kind of come to that conclusion. But that doesn't mean I'm anti-listing. It just means like for me, I can't,
Yeah, I'm pro listing generally. Like as long as it's not making yourself or other people miserable. I think I love the concept of county listing. I think people that list in their county end up going to all sorts of little godforsaken places, little patches of water or forest that nobody would ever go looking for birds in. Just trying to see a new bird for their county or their patch, whatever. And in the process, making other discoveries, finding, new nesting records of species X, So I think anything that gets people out, moving around, enjoying birds is generally a pretty positive thing. So I'm pretty pro listing, but I do think you're right. Like if you're making yourself miserable in the process, you're probably not, it's probably worth reevaluating if how you're doing it, because it is supposed to be fun. And I'm not a big chaser either. I will chase stuff every now and then. Especially if it's really something new that I really want to see. We had this bean goose that showed up outside Philly and then in Philly a few weeks later. And I definitely went chasing that thing around. I had hoped and dreamed to see during my time up in Alaska and never really been in the range of. Right. Otherwise, when it shows up in your backyard, you're like, oh my God, I got to go see that thing. I remember the first day that thing showed up, I dropped everything and went. Yeah. It was no question. And it was kind of the same thing when the black-backed oriole showed up here 4 or 5 years ago, maybe more than that now. And every now and then I tried to go for the Black Hawk up in Maine and dipped on it. And but I was with friends, and I knew that even if we didn't see it, we were going to it was going to be an 8 or 9 hour drive. It turned out being quite a bit more than that due to the traffic. But, even so, I knew we were going to have a good time. And so whether we saw it or not was almost immaterial.
Yeah.
Chasing listing, I think, again, it's supposed to be fun. I think that's the real key.
Yeah, it's same type of thing that when I'm trying to teach people bird identification, and often somebody will say to me, "Gosh, it's just there's a lot going on, and the flycatchers, and it just stresses me out. I'm in the field, and I'll see a flycatcher, and I got to figure out what it is, and it freaks me out." I always tell people, "Whoa, like this is fun. Like you gotta roll it back, like dial it down, where you don't really care, so that you're comfortable and kind of at peace, and that's when you learn. You cannot actually learn bird identification. If you're
all stressed out.
all stressed out, whatever. And I find it interesting that people do get that stressed out with birds, but advice to everybody out there is just chill, relax. It's fun.
Yeah.
And then it comes easier, like your brain kind of opens up like a sponge and you're like, I don't care what this flycatcher is. I'm just going to watch it, just going to watch it and see what it does. And before you know it, you're seeing things, that you wouldn't have paid attention to if you were like, freaking out about flycatcher.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm sure the same is true for you. You're a bird robot for a lot of your non-birding and friends, and even for a lot of your birding friends. I'm sure you get a lot more ID help requests than I do, even. With something like Impidinax flycatchers, I kind of know what to look for and listen for. But people send me a photo of an Impidinax flycatcher. A lot of time, I'm just like, oh man, like send me a recording, or I'm not apt to look at the photo and know what it is right away, and I don't even really care. But if I was there and happened to see the thing in the field, then I'm engaged and I'm interested because it was a bird that I saw. But a lot of the time, it's sort of the same with like female hummingbirds and stuff. I don't really care unless I'm actually seeing the bird.
I have
it doesn't matter to me.
I have an idea for all of those requests that people like ourselves get just randomly sometimes, or sometimes people it's like we should have a little tip jar, like the Starbucks tip your barista, bucket identification, it's like
absolutely. Yeah,
I mean, we do it all for the love of it, but
I feel like you'd be pulling more weight on that than I would, though. So I'm not sure. Not sure it'd be a great deal for you. But,
I don't know, man. You've written some books.
Yeah, man. Well, we're getting close to an hour here. I did want to ask you, Al, what you have coming up. You always got one thing or another. Have you got some stuff coming up you want folks to know about? I'll give you a second to think about it. There was two things I wanted to mention. One was we were talking about that Puerto Rican Sharp-shinned Hawk. And if folks want, I know the Peregrine Fund has a relief fund that they're trying to do their best with this thing, and they're actually working on trying to get some captive breeding and rearing going. So if folks are interested in trying to help for that, please go to the Peregrine Fund and look up the Puerto Rican Sharp-shinned Hawk. The other thing I wanted to do was promote my talk, which I just completed on a Rock Jumper Dream Destinations webinar on Colombia's Wild East. If you Google Rock Jumper YouTube, you will find it there, Colombia's Wild East, where I detail the trip that I completed a little over about a month ago now. And yeah, man, it was a real blast. A lot of good photos to share there. And so I'd like for folks to check it out if they get a chance.
Yeah.
But what have you been up to, man? What do you got coming up?
I saw your talk, and it's a good one. So, so I suggest people do go and see that. And it's an interesting way to see a place through the eyes of an experienced birder who had actually never been to some of these places. And it's interesting to sort of, what wowed you about the spots and so forth. So, yeah, what I got going, I've got some actual workshops coming up. I'm doing in May 10th. There's going to be 4 classes starting May 10th, a flycatcher workshop, and then there'll be a West Coast Seabirds workshop in June, starting June 3rd. Now, the way you can, if you want to look this up, you go to my website, alvarosadventures.com, and there's an events subheading there, and all the courses and so on are on there. But next week, I'm actually going to Hawaii. That's, maybe we'll talk about that after it happens, but it's
Yes.
not some, by the time this airs, that will have happened. So we can later talk about Hawaii and hopefully some seabird and, some of the Hawaiian honey creepers. I can talk to you
Maybe
about
some cool marine mammals.
maybe a cool marine mammal. Yeah. I
Yeah.
want to see one of those pygmy right whales. Yeah. Something like that.
The Kogio, right?
Pygmy sperm whale. What am I saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Pygmy sperm.
Yeah.
whale.
Kogio.
Pygmy and dwarf.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. No, that sounds awesome. I'm looking forward to hearing how that goes, and hopefully you'll get cool little cuckoolaria running around out there, a little cuckoolaria petrel of some kind, or some other pterodromas. Those are probably my favorite genus of birds in the world. So good luck out there.
It's going to be interesting just to fly. I haven't flown yet for over a year, and it's I'll probably buckle up, get the spiel from the thing and start weeping like a child, just at the fact that things are sort of shifting to a different gear that, a year ago seemed almost impossible. So,
yeah, you're going to kiss the ground when you get down there in Honolulu. And yeah, you'll see a couple friends of ours, Mandy Talpas and our colleague here at Lifeless Birding Podcast, Molly Brown, who we want to get her on here soon.
Yeah, they're the leaders.
Learn a little more about what Molly's got going on.
Yeah, they're the leaders for the trip, and I'm kind of going as a kind of hang-around, for a bit of it.
Hang arounder?
Yeah, hang-arounder.
Basically, you're a pelagic hang-arounder.
That's right.
If there's a boat trip, you're like, get in on this action somehow.
That's right. I'll be doing the eBird list, taking some of the tasks away from, so they can concentrate on, the trip. Maybe
Nice.
I know all the annoying questions to ask a tour leader, so do that.
Nice. We'll be sure to pepper them with those.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, good stuff. Enjoyed talking to you as always, man. And thanks everybody for listening. And do let us know how we're doing and what you'd like us to cover here. We always are eager to hear from listeners. So thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks from the West Coast, and we'll do this again soon. Looking forward to it.
All right. Cheers.
All right.